Okay, we'd like to thank you all for coming tonight to our first physical town hall meeting. I'm Andrew Wisher, president of AZPPO, and again, this is our first in a series of these physical town hall meetings. For a while we've had a virtual town hall set up, and that's going to be improved here in the near future. We're actually revamping AZPPO's website, which will allow us to have a blog on our website, a forum for these type of questions. So feel free to look for that. That'll be upcoming here shortly. As of right now, if you have anything you'd like to submit, you can email myself or Heather, and just come grab us afterwards if you need a card or an email address for that.
I'm Heather.
That's Heather right there. Also like to take the opportunity to introduce a couple of the people that have graciously given the time. Jack Peterson, who is the acting director of OPM, as well as Environmental Service Division Director at Department of Ag. Dave Burns and Ken Frederick from the task force have also graciously given their time to be here, so we appreciate that. Just to give you a little bit about AZPPO, we are a statewide organization representing approximately 100 members statewide, and our mission, and this is straight from our bylaws and website, is to serve as a voice of Arizona pest control industry, protecting the livelihoods of pest management professionals while fostering education, promoting professionalism, raising ethical standards, enhancing environmental stewardship, improving public health, and the quality of life. So that is, to fulfill our mission, is in part why we want to hold these meetings, so we can have this constructive discussion to help decide basically our fate as much as we possibly can. We're also open to all sizes of companies. For those of you who don't know, I'm a partner in a small company out of Mesa. From time to time, we average 4 to 8 employees, so we are very small. So we also have some of the largest companies in the state as members as well. We, in addition, are affiliated with the National Pest Management Association. We are a joint state. And a couple of housekeeping notes. If you've not done so already, please sign this sheet here. Does anyone need that? Please sign this sheet here so we can have your information and you showing us being here. Got a pen. Okay. Also, here shortly when the website is up, we're going to have a listserv that you guys can also sign up for, and our website's azppo.org. Okay, we currently have about 300 people on this listserv, and this, along with our membership list, is how we keep the industry informed about the OPM task force and other important industry information. Our next town hall meeting is going to be in Tucson in January. We've still not yet decided on the date, which will work best for everybody, but it will be, sorry if I have a question, it will be either the 12th or 26th most likely. So for those of you who are already part of the listserv, be looking out for that email on the date, time, and venue. We are also in the process of scheduling additional town hall meetings in other parts of the state, probably Yuma, possibly Flagstaff. More information to come on those. Just for your information, the next OPM task force meeting is on Wednesday the 11th of January at 10 a.m. and the Pest Management Advisory Committee is also on that date, the 11th, at 1:30 p.m. Both of these meetings are at the Arizona Department of Agriculture. Okay. Again, watch your email for a notice as we get closer to that date. In addition, cell phones, if you can put those on silent so we're not distracted, that would be appreciated. Okay, and then with that, if you guys got the email, you'll notice on our agenda that we will next have an industry update from Jack Peterson, after which we'll turn the time over to Courtney Levinus to moderate the discussion. And we just ask that you guys, per topic, comment one time, keep it brief. Remember, this is not the only time you'll get to talk or speak your mind, so please be respectful of other people's time, and we'll try to keep this meeting to approximately about an hour. So if you can help us with that. We want to give you a voice. At the same time, let's make sure everyone gets a chance to express their opinion. And with that, we'll turn the time over to Jack Peterson.
Thank you. I only have a page to go through, so that'll, that won't take long. I guess because I do work for the government and everything, that I'm going to stand up and say a couple things first. Don't forget to renew your licenses. This license is too big. It needs to happen, and we're getting shorter and shorter in time. I want to, based on the last task force meeting and everything, I want to make everybody realize nothing has changed so far. So you have to continue to do things as you always have. You know, people talked about the background investigations and all the hours and all that kind of stuff. Nothing has changed. So continue to operate under the same processes. One of the things I talked about coming to the Department of Agriculture, we're big on compliance. And compliance assistance, I guess, is what I want to say, and the best way to do that is keep your customers happy. You know, we don't want to go and break anybody's head. I was going to talk a little bit about the legislative history, kind of how this all came along, but I guess the only two things that I will, looking forward, that what we're doing with being in the Department of Agriculture for the Office of Pest Management, we're asking the legislature to reduce the budget. We're asking the legislature to reduce the number of FTEs that we have in the agency, because the budget was way over the amount of money that we brought in, so we're trying to set the budget at the income level that the agency can support, and also bring the FTEs down more in line of where we're at. I'm going to talk about, just mention a few things that the task force has already made some decisions on. One of them being the criminal investigations, that's not government's role. If you guys want to do that, you can do that, and I know that in some industries they're already making that as marketing. Their marketing is saying they do background investigations on all their employees. Second thing is inactive licenses. There's this whole process of inactive licenses where you just pay money, you don't have to continue CUs, and task force has recommended that we do not maintain inactive licenses. We also made the recommendation that we do continue with continuing education, because there was some complaining about the Office of Pest Management competing with private industry. They said that we should continue doing continuing education credits. We're to focus on the rules and regulations and things like that most people don't probably have the expertise to cover as well as the Office of Pest Management does. I want to point out again with the task force and with the Office of Pest Management, there are 2 listservs. And so if you want to be notified of the meetings and stuff like that, we're getting better with all this stuff. We've never done these before, so we get better every time. But sign up for the listserv on our website, which is www.azda.gov, and look for the task force, and it'll link you to where you need to go. I want to point out that anything is open. Andy said that, but again, we've made no decisions. We're having, I think, the last meeting was probably we had really great discussions, I thought. So. Continue to weigh in on these things as we move along. Current hot topics in my mind are the qualifying party, and we're actually developing a white paper to bring back to the task force for discussion. And then TARPs, what should be happening with the TARPs. They talked about the next meeting. With that, that's all I've got. So,
Jack, can you say again what one of the decisions that were made about the criminal background checks? What was that?
They have the task force has recommended that moving forward that the criminal background investigations not be part of the licensing process.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll jump in.
Was that good enough? I mean, Dave and Ken, I guess I did this really quick, and I tried to hit the highlights, and if there's anything I missed, please speak up.
No, I think that's pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Courtney Loias, and I'm the president of Capital Consulting. We are a political consulting lobbying firm, as well as association management. So I handle the lobbying for AZPPO. Heather handles our association management for AZPPO. So between the two of us, if you have any questions on AZPPO, please don't hesitate to ask one of the two of us. I thought I'd start out today just quickly going through Senate Bill 1194, just to give us a quick refresher on what it was all about, kind of what's evolved, so why we're here today. But 1194 was the Senate bill passed earlier this session this year. It took effect on July 20th. Is that the right date? July something. And basically moved OPM temporarily into the Department of Agriculture. But most importantly, what it set up is the task force, which is made up of 3 ag representatives, 3 representatives from pest management, 2 members of the Agriculture Advisory Committee, which is a standing committee in the Department of Ag, and then 1 member from the Department of Agriculture, which is Jack. And then on or before December 15th, so 1 year from now, December 15th, 2012, this board is going to report back to the governor and the legislature. And basically what they're going to do is look at the rules, regulations, statutes pertaining to OPM. and then make recommendations for changes. So like Jack said, and I think this is really important to note, even though they're having discussions right now, the changes won't go to the legislature until the 2013 session, which would mean they will not take effect until about July or August of 2013. So this is going to be a somewhat long process, which is good because then it's going to give us the time to really review the statutes, the regulations, make changes as necessary and as deemed necessary from the industry. So it's really critical over the next year to have your support, your feedback on what's going on with the task force. They need to hear directly from the industry in which they regulate. So we've had basically 3 task force meetings thus far, and so far they're moving along pretty well. There's a lot of issues to cover. So I don't envy any of the members on this task force. It is certainly not an easy job. Jack mentioned the criminal background checks again. This is just an item that the task force has recommended that OPM no longer do these background checks. You as a private company can choose then to do them or not do them. You know, for a liability or marketing standpoint, it will be a business decision if in fact this should be part of the legislative package in 2013. So with that, we'll kind of start that out maybe as a discussion item, maybe start with one of the easier discussion items at this point. And Andy, you talked about how we want to handle the discussion, didn't you? I was kind of looking at my notes for a minute while you were talking.
As far
Did we say as far as like a couple minutes per person, and try to limit your comments to one comment on each of the items? So with that,
we're going to stop you. A couple minutes would be
Andrew's going to be on his watch. And then if you could, just a housekeeping note, when you do get up to talk, be sure and give us your name so that Heather, who is quickly transcribing notes, can keep track of who says what. And then with that, we'll kind of open up the discussion on criminal background checks. This is very informal. This is, jump in and tell us your thoughts and ideas and opinions. So any thoughts, ideas, good or bad, on criminal background checks? Okay.
Don Calloway, Arizona Organic. What's the purpose of them not wanting to do background checks?
Jack and some of the task force members can maybe jump in, but from what I received from the task force meeting is that it's just not necessarily a government responsibility. In other areas and industries that are regulated, they leave it up to the business to decide whether or not they want to do that. But I could be wrong, is there?
That's pretty much the synopsis that the task force came up with, that it wasn't government's responsibility to do those. That would be industry's responsibility to determine who they felt comfortable with working in their home. We did have our Attorney General rep check the law, and there's nothing in law that would require the Office of Pest Management or the Department of Agriculture to do that background check. So we felt that it was industry's responsibility to do that.
I'm going to throw in just one thing in addition to that. Just from the Department of Office of Pest Management, it is a time-consuming process, and it takes time away from you guys in your licensing process. And in looking at agency resources, if we're looking at trying to reduce the overall spending within the Office of Pest Management, that's one that we thought was a fairly easy one to do.
Mark Graham, Sun Lake Pest Control. My understanding was that we paid a fee for the background check as an individual, correct? When we go for the licensing?
As an applicant.
Each individual applicant pays a fee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's actually a burden on the company. So if you're applying for the license, you pay the fee, and at that point, that fee is what the state charges, correct?
Fee goes
So it's
to-
not,
goes to
there's no
DPS.
additional cost to you. I'm just trying to extrapolate all these fees that you're talking about. The fee that's paid by the individual that's applying for the license, that gets licensed, that's what it costs to do it, correct?
Correct, that check actually
So
goes
then,
directly to.
there's not
DPS.
actually an additional fee to the state for that. And at that point, if that person's paying the fee, and so that we can ensure as an industry that we're not employing pedophiles, rapists, college football coaches, we're keeping our own industry safe. And they're paying the cost, and they're paying it to you to do it, correct? Did I miss that, or?
The money that is paid goes to DPS. DPS does the background investigation, and
But,
then we have.
so
to-
there's nobody at the state, there's nobody within the Office of Pest Management or now the Department of Agriculture that's actually doing it. It's DPS that's doing it, correct?
DPS gives us the paperwork, and then we review the paperwork, the criminal record
So
that we do.
it does take you the time to review the paperwork, but
does.
that's the only thing that it's costing us.
The time, the manpower resources.
You have to have hearings. We have to invite the individual to the Office of Pest Management. If
But
they
as an
want to
individual
have a hearing.
company, knowing that I'm not knowingly hiring a pedophile for the cost of a few hours of man time,
And I guess our view was you could do that on your own.
Right.
We don't need to be involved in that process. And as Courtney said, it could be a marketing thing or a liability thing as your business decide.
What we done with Nottingham Pest Control, just one point of disagreement, they said that other government agencies don't do criminal background checks. I have my real estate license, I had to go a criminal background check. My mother-in-law owns a mortuary, they do criminal background checks. And my wife is a teacher, and they undergo criminal background checks.
It's not all.
Yeah, I should
Yeah.
probably clarify, there are a number of regulated industries that don't have to, but there are legislators that do, doctors, nurses.
So then we could expect to see that fee reduced on applications?
Yeah, if,
It'd be eliminated.
yeah, it's a
this is
separate
what I
check right now.
did.
I think is it 24 bucks? Yeah.
but the individual pays that. It's not the company that pays that. The individual that's applying for the license is the company.
We pay ours.
And I think we've heard from some companies that said they do the background checks in addition to what DPS.
Yeah.
Did that come up too during the?
Yes, a
They
lot of
still do
companies said
background checks in
they do
addition to
their
what
own,
DPS does.
they do their own background checks
Part of the
through
applicant
private companies.
One point of note, the DPS also issues fingerprint clearance cards. You might just look at accepting those as they've already done the background checks, because I know for real estate and for education, we both had to have those. So,
I do know one of the problems, Dave Burns, I'm speaking on behalf of Burns Pest Elimination, this time not as a task force member. One of the things we've experienced since we've been doing this for a long time, one of the things that happens is DPS is a FBI background check. FBI is governed and directed by Homeland Security. So anytime Homeland Security risk threat goes up, DPS background checks go on the side burner. So you could go several weeks to probably a month or longer without getting a response out of a federal background check, because with a heightened risk threat through Homeland, DPS checks are low priority and all their resources are moved up to higher priority. And you might be able to speak on. I know we've experienced that.
That's generally the case, and that's where we say you have to allow 6 weeks for a background investigation. And again, that's where I said it can slow down the licensing process for you as businesses.
Larry Flower with Terminex. I think the biggest problem that I see is there's a lot of people that we have to pay to do criminal background checks. We have our own vendor that we pay to do all our criminal background checks. We also have property management companies that use companies like CrimShield that does background checks. and we have to pay to have our people cleared through them. So I mean, there's no end to the list of people that we are paying to do criminal background checks. So I think that companies should be responsible to take care of their own.
All right, any other thoughts or comments, opinions on criminal background checks?
Bob Wagner, Wagner Pest Solutions. I just would like to know, are you still going to ask the 2 medical questions on the app then?
Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
I think that's it.
Never really talked about that.
I think
Oh,
that-
actually, you're right, Casey did say
That's what
something.
Casey said, was that was a statutory requirement.
Yeah, there was something that said we had to ask certain questions.
Yeah, and it says something like a felony is a
Felony or a misdemeanor
Something
involving
like
more
that.
So
criminal.
then the question is if that question has to be on there, do we not just ask then that they provide their own criminal background check from a reputable company? Give them the 3 companies and have them provide it. You don't need it. You don't need to wait for them. They can do it themselves. You have to ask those questions. And how do you know if they're lying or not if you don't have that information?
That's a good question, but we've
I
asked
mean-
the question before we were doing the background checks.
We've asked them to not lie to us. Okay, please don't lie to us. Now prove that you didn't lie to us. Correct?
Yeah, I think.
Because that's the truth. I mean, you're asking them to not lie.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is the reputable and ethical companies will do right, and the ones who aren't will not, and so the
There's-
question gets us nothing.
20 of us in the town hall here. Correct. I get it.
Jim Junior, JCG Working Pest Control. I think, I'm sure one of the objections that I'm kind of hearing in the undercurrent is, gee, I'm going to have to pay, X amount of dollars to get a criminal records check possibly done on an applicant. The thing I guess I would like to consider conversely, because I agree with your stance on this. For instance, here recently I had a guy, your guys' criminal check can go clear back into juvenile things. Well, I've got a guy in his 30s who did a dine and dash when he was 16. Now I take a whole day to come down here to go through, no offense, but what I felt like was a bit of a dog and pony show to vouch for this guy so we could get him licensed, because I mean, when I say a dog and pony show, I would have been incredibly stunned were he not approved for a license over something he did when he was 16 years old, when he's 30 years old, and it was a very minor magnitude. And I would much rather pay $50 or $70 to get a good criminal background check done, which I'm doing anyway. So it's, for me, for a lot of things, a duplication. But I'd rather pay the money than waste time. And again, I don't mean to sound offensive when I say waste time, Jack, but trust me, when I've done my criminal records check, if I'm going to hire them, I think it's a waste of time if they have a felony that far back of a minor nature that we're going to do this.
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. It's just one thing that we have changed. They used to, everybody would come in and sit down at the table and we talk about it, even things like that. And we've changed that. Basically, if someone's outside of 3 years, they've been maintaining a clean record for 3 years, we're not sitting down and talking to them anymore. Nobody has to come in and talk to us. The place where people get into trouble is we have people who still lie in their applications. They say that they know they've never been convicted of a felony. And then we get the background investigation and it shows that indeed they do. They have to come back in and sit down and talk to us. But if you're 3 years out, clean record, we're basically letting folks go on that, unless it's mass murder or,
Well, yeah, I guess my only point I'm making is, if you aren't currently doing a felony records check, you're going to spend a few more dollars on this end. On the other hand, you could be saving yourself an awful lot of headache and time. $50, $70, it doesn't take much of any of our time to add up to a lot more money than that. So that's what I point is.
Ken Frederick, Conquistador Pest and Termite. I've been doing this over 30 years, and I used to do background checks until maybe 5 years, 6 years ago. All of a sudden, it was on the application. So I don't see what the big deal is, to be quite honest. It's only been recently when we had to submit that $24. Yeah, the question was always on the app, have you been convicted of a felony or not? And so you were relying on somebody's integrity to say yes or no. And the background check saved me years ago from hiring 2 people that lied on their application. So, you know, I don't understand, to be quite honest, what the difficulty is, since it's such a new process anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. It's a cost of doing business. Protect your license.
Any other thoughts or questions on criminal background?
That was the
On to
easy
one that might get a little more discussion, and that's the qualifying party. And the task force has kind of talked about, you know, the 3,000 hours. And I'm just going to throw that out there. We can kind of start the discussion there. And is that something we should keep? Should we keep qualifying party? Should we keep 3,000 hours? Are there better ways to do this? So we'll jump in with that.
Well, I'd say Ryan Harmon, University Combined Pest Control. As far as when you get your qualifying party license, I think it's pretty ridiculous to have to carry both of them.
Business license and qualifying party, or
my
applicator? Okay.
Because when I fill out those forms, I never know which license to put down. So, but then I'm paying double. So.
And we thank you for that.
Right. And it's like doubling our fees and then still charging cars. But we'll go into that next time. But yeah, I think that as far as the qualifying party is concerned, if you've got your applicator's license and you get your qualifying party's license, I don't believe you should have to still keep the applicator's license. So, because you can't get the qualifying party license without the applicator's license.
Any thoughts on the 3,000 hours? We spent a lot of time on the task force on this. Yes.
I've always thought that I don't necessarily have a problem with the 3,000 hours to get your initial license, but I've always thought there should be some consideration for broadening a category. If a company's, if I've been a qualifying party for a number of years and I want to broaden into, let's say, weed control, I should be fairly proficient at reading labels and learning about my target pests and so on by now. That I don't think I necessarily need 3,000 hours in the field of killing weeds before I should be able to start qualifying that in my business.
That's a good.
I think sometimes the hour requirement can be a bit cumbersome per category. So if you're looking for a different way to do it, what I would strongly suggest is we not lower the bar, you know, for a qualifying party, but maybe you want to say, okay, 3,000 hours equates to X number of years, and change it to a time frame of active employment or something to that effect if you want to make a change. But I would strongly suggest you not lower the bar. I've been very moved to Arizona and got involved in this industry getting close to 25 years ago now, and one of the benefits that I think a lot of times we don't like to talk about is with some increased regulation that we've had, I've seen the level of professionalism in the industry increase dramatically. And I think if we start doing things like lowering the bar for QPs, we're going to, it won't happen in 6 months, but over, 5 or 10 year period, we're going to see a real lack of professionalism again in our industry. And that's not, you can say, well, that's good for me if my competitor does that work, but it's really not good for us. It's an industry.
Keith Berkmeyer with ProBest, and I agree with Tim. When I started, I've got 20 years in the industry, but I was with a manufacturer, and there's a time limit that's set in that bar as well. Within the last 7 years,
5.
What? 5? Yeah. So I had to do some quick maneuvering by the time I left them back to my days. And I currently still have a license in Florida for fumigation, but yet I can't have one here because I don't have 3,000 hours here. So it's just kind of in my book. I agree with you. I hate to lower the standard, the original standard, but as you mentioned, we do know what we're talking about. Maybe there's some things you can do to broaden that. Because if I could walk into Florida tomorrow and open up a fumigation company if I wanted to, but I can't here.
Nathan Waters, Cummings Termite and Pest Control. Compared to a lot of you guys here in the room, I've probably been in the industry probably the least amount of time. I've had my qualifying party now for 3 years, and I've been in the industry for 6. I come out of Minnesota to do this. Now,
I'm a Minnesota boy.
We won't talk about the Vikings, Joe, will we?
Yeah, I didn't talk about Vikings.
We're not going to talk about the Vikings.
I heard the back of my manly car.
But as far as lowering the requirements, I am against it. I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and it begins with a qualifying party license. The issue that I have is when I take a look across the United States, maybe pursuing an opportunity of another pest control operation in another state, there's very little reciprocity. And as far as I'm concerned, the state of Arizona should be leading the charge in pest control across the entire country, because we are an epicenter for pest control here. The fact that we kind of let states like California push us around, really, I have a big problem with. Not because I just don't like California, but because I think that we have an opportunity here to really be at the top of the pile when it comes to pest control. As far as I'm concerned, the qualifying party is far too easy to obtain, and our barrier to entry in this industry is so low that we have riddled ourselves with subpar competition, and as a result, really hammered down the cost of service. And one of the better things that could happen to us, and I mean, shame on me for saying this maybe, but this economy has helped a lot of us, because once we come out of the back end, the theory is, and this isn't just this industry, but several others, is that those who can weather this storm tend to be extremely successful coming out of the back end. But I'm still seeing very, very poor quality competition as a result of the economic pressure. If you don't have any skin in the game, you have no reason to charge more or strive to do better. Now, this can even tie into the background checks, where, yes, I believe companies should be responsible for their own background checks. I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, we need to give ourselves as much opportunity as we can to have smaller government and have more opportunity to be better than, let's say, our competition. And if we have 100 companies in the state of Arizona as opposed to 1,100 companies in the state of Arizona, I fail to see how that hurts us. Because for everybody here who is surviving, then all those customers are going somewhere. Univar isn't losing any money. The companies that are still around are making money. I mean, it's going to be there. It is a necessary, it's a service that people have determined, even in a rough economic patch, that there is a need. They're going to allocate funds to pay for pest control. So, as far as the qualifying party requirement is concerned, the 3,000-hour deal, I think, as far as maybe attributing a different time frame to it, let's not do hours, let's maybe do months or years, sure. But when I applied for my qualifying party, there was nobody looking at those hours. I mean, 3,000 hours. Here you go. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Just because you talked about the reciprocity. What you're saying, I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's in the agriculture side.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is certified in another state, we accept them, I mean, where we can.
Yeah.
And I guess we got to realize that if we're talking about reciprocity, that means that your competition also may be coming in from out of state, and we're doing reciprocity with them. And I just want everybody to realize that, and that's what you were thinking as well. Somebody may come from Florida.
Sure.
And come into our state and say, I've got a fumigation certification in Florida, and we would go, as long as the requirements are basically the same, they're all EPA-approved programs, we'd go, okay, you can have fumigation certification here in Arizona.
Yeah, as long as they meet the requirement.
Yeah.
I'm for good quality competition. I'm not for a lot of competition. I'm for quality competition. we all benefit from good competitors. We all do. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You can't argue with me that you really want to compete against a guy that's doing pest control service for $25. That doesn't cut it. It just doesn't. And in fact, there's no value there. I can't even look to acquire a route at $25 a stock. So so we need skin in the game. I mean, you need to put your time and your money into this industry if you're serious about it, and that'll help everybody.
Hey, Jack. Question. As a task force member, can we ask the question now? Are we legal to do that?
Well, this is not a task force meeting.
No, I know, but
So we're, we are here and able to discuss.
Because I just have a question as a task force member, if I could ask. Well, no, not of him, of general. Somebody's talked about professionalism and reciprocity and timeframes. My question was, somebody said something about a weed license, 3,000 hours on a weed license. Does industry believe that there should be distinguishing differences between what's required of a fumigation license versus what would be required to qualify for a weed license? I think I'm trying to get the extremes of the two. So it's just a question that, as a task force member, I'd like your input on.
There's a whole lot of difference between, I mean, you're tending a building and possibly killing someone versus, I mean, the extent of, you know,
Okay, remember to give us your names before you.
That was Keith
Chime in.
Berkmeyer. I'm Mark. Pest Control. And yeah, there's a significant difference between applying sulfurlyl fluoride or Vicane gas in an entire structure and applying Roundup and some kind of pre-emergent, whatever you choose, pendimethalin, I can name a zillion of them. I don't need to. But weed control versus fumigation on a structural fumigation versus agricultural fumigation on wheat and corn and barley are entirely different genres of pest control. And we don't, as an industry, as a structural pest control industry, very seldom do we ever go in to structures where we're going to put in lethal gas. It's going to have the potential to kill a human. Okay? Our industry does that, but very, very few. What do we got? 5 companies that actually do structural fumigation in Phoenix? 5? Maybe 6? And when you say the big companies, I don't even think Terminex does structural fumigation in Arizona.
Sure we do.
Are you currently doing it?
Huh?
But Orkin, Terminex, Truly Nolan, Phoenix, Pest Control, and Arizona Terminating. I just named them all. So structural fumigation is an entirely different business than structural pest control that we all engage in on a daily basis. Qualifying, now I do want to talk about qualifying party licenses because I'm a qualifying party, I'm an applicator, and I carry a business license as well, which to me is the most ridiculous license that I actually carry. If you want to eliminate a license, which obviously that's what I think you're looking to figure out, is how to get rid of a licensing category, eliminate the business licensing category, keep qualifying parties, which are responsible for the application on a daily basis, and the applicator's licensing, and individuals which aren't involved in our business but own businesses will be out of it. Because that's our issue. People that aren't involved but still take the money from our industry out of state, out of country, to France or wherever they live, but own businesses in our state. And that's not what we're about, because we are about local business. Qualifying parties and applicators are here every single day.
But on the other hand, County Hunter Pest Control will be done again. I think it's ridiculous that we have 2 termite licenses. I think it's ridiculous we have a situation where a guy can go out and do a termite treatment, and while he's there, not be able to write up a supplemental WD-IIR while he's there if he doesn't have both licenses.
Mm-hmm.
I just need a little bit of clarification. Are we not wanting more licenses because we don't want to pay the fees, or we don't want more licenses because we're just sick of having more licenses? I mean, I don't know
That's
what.
a question for the Department of Ag.
Brian Horn, University Pest Control, my opinion is a lot of them are redundant. Like the
okay.
B2 and B8 is redundant, and having
Used to be one.
the applicator and the qualifying party separate. They both have the same responsibility. You know how to apply. When you have the QP, you've got to make sure that you are training and equipping. Those 2 are redundant once you've got to the qualifying party. Sure, the finances will help, but I don't think it's to get rid of it and make my life easy.
Okay, today's question, I do think there should be differentiation between categories. I still think maybe there should be a test, maybe some way to verify that you've got the basic knowledge in order to do it. But I think that, I know that many years ago I had a weed applicator's license, and as I started my business, we weren't doing it. Now I would like to get back into it, but it's been so many years that I don't qualify, so I should be able to get back into it if I want to.
Landscapers were kind of thrown out of that bunch, so just do what they do and then use that same time.
I suppose that's
what I did.
That's a possibility, yes. I also, though, don't think that we should be so restrictive on our licenses that we shouldn't necessarily stifle competition that comes from somewhere else. I don't really think that's appropriate, although I don't necessarily like it any more than anyone else. I still don't think that should be the function of the Office of Pest Management.
Henry Schneiker, International Accommodations. I went back and was curious about this whole issue, and so went back and sat down and read the law. Under paragraph G, under business license, it says that you need a QP or an applicator.
For a branch,
office.
not a company.
Well, if the company's got one branch, that makes it the company. Okay, and you know, like I don't really care if it's per building. The point was, you don't have to have a QP. If you've got an applicator who knows how to spray weeds, and you want to spray weeds, and you don't got a QP, you can go spray weeds, according to the law.
I think if you go back and reference 32-2313, B3, where it says under your business license you have to include the name, address, and qualifying party, that's for the business license. G is just impacting the branch office, which you may or may not have a branch office. But under the business license, again, 32-2313 B3, you have to have your qualifying party for the business license. Because I think there has been some confusion on that.
You know, we're on the top 10 here at JHTG working pest control.
I'm tired.
I guess since we're on this subject of QPs, I don't know if that's the whole all the things Jack mentioned, because you said you were considering getting rid of inactive QPs. Is that what I understood?
Inactive licenses, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you might clarify that. It wasn't that there wouldn't be availability of, we weren't getting rid of them as a license. Yeah. It just means that they couldn't, the task force says, you can't just put it on hold and not do anything with it. You have to have continuing education. You have to renew the license. You have to do all the things except hang it somewhere.
Okay, so I guess the motivation for my question is I persuaded my business partner here in the last year to go get his QP, because my point is if something happens to me under current statutes, you have 90 days to get a license. You're going to have enough other things to worry about. This way, all you have to do is go in and activate your license, and we're not jeopardizing the business. So that would not go away because he's active in the business. He's going to renew. He's going to get his light hours. So that doesn't change. Am I understanding you correctly, Dave?
Yeah, as far as the task force goes, what we determined was that inactive license shouldn't exist any longer. So in your specific instance, your business partner has a license. Ignore the inactive part.
Yeah, he has an applicator's license.
Okay, well, he would have to get a QP license.
Well, he has a QP.
Okay, he has a QP. So
inactive at this moment.
Right. So as long as he, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, as long as he had the continuing education requirements, paid the license renewal fee of an active party, he has an active license that's just not hung somewhere.
Okay.
Correct?
So in other words, the only difference I'm hearing from what is actually happening now, because he's getting the CEA is we're going to pay a little bit higher fee, and it's going to be an active QP.
Paying the same fees now. The only difference is what Dave said again is people became an inactive party, and all they did is they paid the fees. They didn't have any continuing education. You could leave your license go for 15 years and never have one stitch of education.
The inactive renewal fee was a lot less than the active fee.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but it was.
Well,
But the biggest requirement was they never had to have any education to renew that license, and that's really what the change is you just now have to get the education every year, just like the active QB does.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike Deans from Medical Institute. I know some years ago, with qualifying party, there was, you could do some university credit. I think it was up to maybe half of the time. I don't think that's in existence anymore, but it seems like, you know, if we want to increase the professionalism of our industry, which I think we all do, why not have a, you know, identify some university courses, whether it be at a community college or U of A or ASU, where if the guy wants to broaden from general pest and termite into weed and turf, then instead of hiring a, you know, a QP, which really doesn't increase the professionalism very much. What if that guy could just go take, you know, a year or two of college, night school or something like that, and broaden in that way? Or a guy could come into the business new. If you had the education, my gosh, you can be a lawyer and a doctor by going to school. Why can't you be a pest control guy by going to school and taking university courses? Seems like it would be, you know, really a boon to the industry.
Well, it'd be great if everybody was charging what they were supposed to, then guys can make a living at it.
well, you've got to get the universities to provide the courses, too.
Guys aren't charging what they're supposed to be charging.
You can't agree to price.
Rick Amalfi, Aquatic Consulting. I'm the oddball, I'm the aquatic guy here. Two things. Once you talked about the difference in requirements to be a QP in various categories and how there are differences. It's kind of a can of worms, because I'll look at for the aquatic side. There's a big difference between treating a little pond in an HOA association and me going out then maybe to Tempe Town Lake and treating, which is a water of the U.S., which now, as of January, actually as of October 31st, I now am an operator under an AZIPTES permit, just like a wastewater treatment plant. Okay, that's what I've been working on for weeks now. That there's a big difference. So you really get into a can of worms when you start trying to divvy up within a category of trying to say different qualifications, because I could sit there and go, my God, I can't believe some guy that's worked one-person company that's going to compete with me for work at Tempe Town Lake on a 220-acre lake that has to have state and federal permitting is the same as them treating a pond over in an HOA. So it really gets tough. You could start subdividing all these into a million things. And the category issue is a real big thing with us, because all of a sudden we woke up a couple of years ago to find that as aquatic people who have treated, weeds, algae, larvae of midge flies, larvae of mosquitoes, all of a sudden the QP category, or the B9, all of a sudden said excluding mosquitoes, which to me was unbelievable. How can somebody with an aquatic license not treat mosquito larvae? That means a person with a B1 could go out and apply to a water of the U.S. for mosquitoes, and a B9 can't? Now, a couple years ago, I went to the board, and I got a director's blessing that we could do that. A B1 or a B9 could treat for mosquitoes. But I would sure like to see, when you redo the laws, the B9 should simply be any plant or animal species that has an aquatic life stage. Very simple. Then we can do, because honestly, I'm almost out of business. As a little company, I'm pretty much, and I'm kind of the old guy that's been around for 25 years. And I do all the aquatic stuff for all the municipalities. If that ends up going back and excludes, and to tell you the truth, now with the changes, I don't know where that director's blessing exists. I've never actually seen a piece of paper that says I can do this. But no one's objected, and when I get into but I've been inspected and no one's ever questioned it. But I would sure like to see that go in there. And I think addressing how some of these categories are listed is really, really important because, like I said, in my case, I need that because we do a huge amount of work treating larvae of these insects. And it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be excluded. I don't want, I look at it this way. I'm as scared for a B1, which is a general pest person, to go into a lake and start putting larvicide and chemicals down for a mosquito. That's as scary as me going out and try to fog. That would be a really scary thing for me to grab a fogging unit and start fogging, because even though it's mosquitoes, and I can say, well, half the life cycle's in the water, so I can fog adults. No, I don't think so. I think that B9 needs to be clarified as being any plant species, any animal species, during the aquatic stages of the life cycle, we can go after. So that's important for, I think, not me alone, but I think all the aquatic companies all treat, especially midge flies. That's a big, big issue in all these HOAs and all these places all over. As the midges grow, they're not diseased, so I understand they're not a public health thing. But mosquitoes are there too. We use the exact same products for the mosquito larvae as we do for midge fly larvae. And to just exclude mosquitoes is kind of ludicrous. So I'd like to see it be broadened to not exclude one very important aquatic species.
I have a question for you. Did you, on the federal waterways?
Yes.
Were you required in your permitting to get another license with federal EPA or anything to do that? Or just the filing of the permit?
It's a general permit. It's similar to I don't know if you're familiar with stormwaters. It's under a general permit. So actually, the state holds the permit,
right.
And then all the locations that have a designation in the state of an aquatic and wildlife, which means all the navigable waters, all the waters that are in the urban fishing program. So places like Papago Park, Kiwanis Park, they are in there. Tempe Town Lake is sitting in the riverbed, it's in there. Scottsdale, all the lakes in Indian Bend Wash, they're all in there. So the state holds the permit. We have to notify them through a notice of intent that says we are going to apply a chemical to that water at some point in time. So the owner files a notice of intent, and then there are some restrictions as far as the area you're going to treat and the frequency you're going to treat.
But you don't have to go get a federal license as well?
No, I don't have to get a license. No, but it certainly behooves the owner to have a licensed individual doing this because of the paperwork that's going to be involved. It's way over and beyond what we have to do for the Office of Pest Management. We have all kinds of monitoring, pre-monitoring, during the application, post-monitoring, all kinds of annual reports of the total areas treated, the chemicals we use. It's massive. So that, I think, brings, and I'm going to bounce all the way to the first item of discussion, how many hours and what kind of qualifications should a QP? I would be afraid if you didn't have something substantial before you could be a QP, some amount of time. I don't think it's silly to say somebody should have a year or year and a half experience out in the field doing this stuff to be the boss and in charge and responsible.
I think that's a consensus.
And the same thing, and I would agree with the college, but I would also say if the college courses do that, they have to be then like a doctor. Doctors actually have to do an internship, a residency. Thank you. That's the word I was searching for. So why not? So I think college courses with some amount of practical experience.
Agreed.
I'm a certified lake manager. There's an organization that certifies lake managers, and you can use a combination of educational credits and job experience to get your certification. I think that's that would be the best, because you don't want somebody that just, as people would say, book learned, because there's a big difference between reading it in the book and doing it in the field. And I'd be the first to admit that.
Back
So.
here. Phyllis, it's our turn. I was part of a work-study program where we had the practical, the lab, and this and that. The corporations sometimes picked students and paid for their education. So if you held an A, they would pay for 80%. If you held a B, it would only be 70%. If you had a C, you're on your own. So there's, some incentive to get, again, good qualified people, and you work with that corporation and go back and forth to college.
All right, one more thing on qualifying party, and then we probably need to move on. Go for it.
Me?
Yeah.
Bob Wagner, Wagner Pest Solutions. I am, I'm the guy that's been in the business for 25 years, but I'm still really young. I'm gonna start with what bothers me the most. At least what was just said. This internship, I'm not going to go to work for somebody else as an intern. I'm the QP of my business. It is absolutely ludicrous to ask me to work for Dave doing his weeds for a year so that I can get my weed license. I know you love free. For
Yeah,
free.
no.
Absolutely ludicrous. I'm not going back to school. I think that I've been certified, licensed in the state since 1986. I started in 1984. I think that I could do a pretty good job at being book learned at how to control weeds. Sure, are there categories that I have no business doing? Absolutely. Fumigation is probably one of them. We probably end up with a bunch of dead cats. So that's for sure one of them. I guess the other things that bother me for sure are this. When I went to the last task force meeting, it seemed like we were bailing on 3,000 hours because it was so hard for people to prove the 3,000 hours. It was so hard for some guys to get employers to do it for them. If they have to find a different way to do it, then that's what they have to find, but that's tough. We have difficult things in our job every day. I deal with difficulties every day. Not every aspect of my job is easy. If the state has difficulty in having somebody prove that they have 3,000 hours, then that's a difficulty that you guys have. It's just a part of doing business. I think that we need to raise the bar in this industry. I've said before, I don't think 3,000 hours is enough. I've also said I think we need more regulation. I want more regulation. And because I said that, I was labeled as a power hog. Well, if I'm a power hog, I'm a power hog. I don't care. I want more regulation. I want a stronger industry. I want better competition. I don't really, I know you guys can't regulate somebody from losing money. I don't want you to. Let them keep losing money. Eventually they won't cash flow and they'll be gone anyways. I don't have to worry about them. I want you guys to give us better competition. And I know it's going to cost me more. But maybe that it costs me more for that, it gets rid of some of these guys that don't belong here. Some of these guys that just don't belong inside this industry. So that's the direction I'd like to see the industry go. I'm with them. I've been doing this long enough that I should be able to go in and take a weed test if I can pass it. I should be able to buy a weed rig, start training my people, and start doing the job right.
Amen.
I have no black marks on my record with the Office of Pest Management, the Structural Pest Control Commission, or the Pest Control Board. That's how far back I go. I knew Dan Columbus. So
you admit it?
I admit it.
That's Columbus's brother.
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
So
that is way back.
Yeah, I'm a proud member of the AZPPO as well. I was a member of MPMA. I was a member of APMA. I've been very involved in my industry. I was a 2-term president for the Pest Control Association. So I care about what I do. I care about what you guys do. I think it's sad that all 1,100 people aren't here, all 1,100 companies, or however many licensed companies there are, because this affects our future. It really does. And I also think it's sad that Hank back here, we haven't done a good job as a Hanker. Henry back here, we haven't done a good job showing him the value of what we do because he wants to do it himself. I service tons of apartment complexes, and the scary part is that maintenance men out there doing bed bug jobs because it costs too much. And then if they find out it's illegal, they start handing tenants or residents chemical, because tenant's a bad word. They start handing residents chemical and tell them, here, this is what you have for bed bugs, go take care of it yourself. I think it's a sad day when that stuff happens. My 2 cents.
Very good. Good discussion. Another hot topic. the TARF fees and structure. Thoughts, ideas, comments, opinions on this?
I'll start
Before
this
I
off.
jump in.
Norman Connolly, Connolly Pest Management. I've been in this industry, I'm thinking, almost the longest. I was originally certified in 78. Wow.
17?
I was 23, I think. 22. Anyway, TARF fees, as I recall, was put in as a way to pay for increased inspectors. And at that time, I thought, you know, it's not a bad deal. The people who are causing the problems in the industry, and it was the pre-treaters in the termite industry that was causing the problems. I thought they're the ones that are going to be paying for this. Over the years, I feel that that has evolved. The TARF fees are no longer as a police method, if you will, to go after the bad apples in the industry. I feel it's become a money-making grab. And I have a real hard time now, years later, and looking at it and going over it in my mind, that the termite industry supports the regulation of this entire industry, and nobody else puts in their 2 cents worth or their $5 or whatever. I would much rather see something along the lines of a per applicator charge, or, and I don't want to go to a per job charge for general pests and everything. I think that's a paper nightmare and too many headaches. But a increase in the applicator fee or something like that would more than likely take care of the same deal. Getting rid of the TARF fees, I would love to see them go away, but the TARFs themselves, I have customers ask me about them, I have realtors ask me about them, I have escrow officers ask me about them. The biggest gripe I have with them is this industry has no way to cross-reference them. If a home is sold, it is recorded at the county. Why can't this industry or this regulatory agency have an agreement with the county that says, here is the homes that were sold and recorded this last month, and the industry, through the use of the technology, can say, okay, this one's been reported, this one's been reported, this one's been reported, this one was not reported as having an inspection. Call up the title company, was there an inspection? Oh sure, we have the paperwork right here. This individual, ABCXYZ123, did not report this TARF. $8 late fee? That's too little. I'd rather see 100 or 500. I really would. And I would rather see it double at every time when it is a non-reported. If it's reported late, that's a different story. But non-reported, because they're robbing the industry, they're robbing the regulatory agency, and they're putting more of a burden on everybody else.
Good job.
Nice job.
Any other back there?
No.
Oh, just stretching.
Well, thumbs up.
Any other thoughts, questions on TARF?
Bob Wagner, Wagner Pest Solutions. I'd like to see TARFs go away. We do use them, Jack. I know you asked at the last meeting, is anybody using them? You know, if I walk a job like today, I did a bit on a property. The holes look pretty fresh. I just said, hey, you know, you may want to call the Office of Pest Management. They may be able to give you some history as of when it was treated. If it was treated within the last year, it may still be under warranty. So does my customer use that information? I don't know. I have utilized it before. I think at one time the termite industry carried the Office of Pest Management. We would sit in those meetings on, was it second Friday? And the whole agenda was bad wood infestation reports or bad tree treats. So that's gone now. So I don't really see the purpose of paying $8 every time I do a termite job or a termite action.
Mark Graham, Siblings Pest Control. I've been in the industry for 20 years too, on a couple of different sides. And the purpose of TARFs, as Norm said, how it evolved and where it's moved to, I don't see that the current functionality of it is necessary. We do real estate inspections. Realtors lie. Homeowners lie. They hide the information, even when you tell them it's there, and they intentionally do it. And it probably opens ourselves up to greater speculation as to whether or not we're lying. Even when we go out and we say, look, there's drill marks on the concrete, there's drill marks on the stem wall, there's evidence on the side of the house. Well, the guy that did the last inspection didn't see any of this. Okay. So you have contradictory information that's being provided. It's not being used as it was originally intended, like Norm said. It was to fund additional inspectors. I don't think that's the case today. And when I got to pay a $24 fee for missing it by a day because I was late, $8 makes sense. $24 is insane, and it's not intentional. It's a mistake. So the use of the TARP is
Question for industry. The task force has gotten feedback from the real estate industry that says they do use it. Does industry have some obviously some people feel that industry doesn't use it. Does industry have some common ground that could address the real estate industry's need to use it or want to use it versus your not using it, since the activity is industries? I just like that feedback.
Nathan Waters, Cummings, Termite and Pest Control. One of the issues that I run into when dealing with real estate transactions is that the TARFs, they give you a history of the property, but it doesn't say anything to the quality of what had actually happened. Right. And so, real life scenario, I run into this quite often, is that I'll have maybe a home that's ready to sell. The seller's responsible for the treatment. Ultimately, all they want is the absolute dirt cheap price to have a tube in the garage treated and a warranty on the home so they can just get the job done. So the TARFs, as much as I like the concept of the TARFs and the history that the real estate industry can actually rely on, that's fine, but for us, it doesn't serve, I don't think it serves its true purpose. And so unless TARFs actually serve its true purpose and can speak to the quality that is the quality that can be reflected in the proper regulation of what happens as a termite treatment or inspection is concerned, I don't know if there is a whole heck of a lot of middle ground, because the realtors don't know what they're looking at anyway.
I guess, Courtney, I probably need to clarify. The feedback we got from the real estate industry was they use that not to check quality of service, strictly from an informative standpoint of who treated what, or who has been on that property, and where could they get those records.
Yeah.
Am I surmising that? Right.
And all I was saying was that, in all honesty, as far as that transaction is concerned, I don't care. I don't, and sometimes we bend over backwards for these agents and the homeowner, and we get absolutely nothing out of it.
Welcome to business.
I'm saying there's a way to solve it. I don't have that answer, but if there's work to be done, there's money to be made. That right now, the way that it's functioning right now, it's not working.
Andrew, what's your score for termite and pest? If we have to meet in the middle, I think it can be a good thing for realtors. Even when I look up a property, if I'm going to go treat, I want to know if there's any history listed. It's not conclusive. It's not accurate. It'd be nice if it was, but it's not. I think we have to meet in the middle, and you have to look at down the road. Is the legislature going to have, they're going to have a rules package that's going to be allowed to be changed? If they're going to look at it as this is a consumer in some way protection, then we got to maybe meet in the middle. And maybe, and someone brought this up, I don't remember who, if we had maybe just a database where maybe pay 50 cents or $1 per listing per treatment like it is now, but lower the fee and just include date of action and company name. So if there's a database where realtors can still contact the company, and now there's less burden on the office to do that, although I don't think it's bad now the way it is electronically, but now they can just come to the company, so there's still that in place. And granted, there are companies that go out of business, they're out of luck, but at least there's something there that we could still not pay $8 every time with late fees, and there's still something there. I mean, I would be fine with something like that.
Mark Graham again, and again it goes to the $8 fee, Somebody's Pest Control, sorry. $8 for
Nobody likes him.
an $800 application, or a $400 application, or a $200 application on the house, or a $65 inspection, or a $40 inspection, or a $20 inspection, and you're still supposed to pay the $8 fee. And it is all over the board. So you're talking about percentages of cost on an $800 fee, you're talking 1% at $8. On $40 fee?
Well, it's up to you. Raise your price.
Well, the customer's paying that.
Yeah, I can't charge you.
Lower the price higher.
No, we choose not to do business with real estate agents.
And that's it, exactly. You know, the fee is $8, whether it's a $40 fee or it's an $800 application. It's the same.
Ryan with Universal Pest Control. Now, I've not been in the industry as long as most of you guys, obviously, but I feel really young.
Easy.
Yeah. Now, I recall about, I don't know, was it 2, 3 years ago, our license fees doubled. And that was because we were going to get rid of the TARP fee altogether.
No, we were catching up.
We were catching up. That's
We
it?
were
Okay.
really
I just need a little
We're short on their
education
budget.
it. Me personally, I just want to get rid of the whole TARP. That's my opinion.
Ken Frederick, Conquistador Pest and Termite. I've been a huge advocate to just throw the TARP system out. I just don't think it serves the public. I don't think it serves the industry. But I've kind of had a little bit of a change by an experience just yesterday. Homeowner calls me, termites in the garage. I check the TARP system because I knew it was a relatively new house. It's still under warranty with the original company. Property manager calls the original company. That company says, no, it's not under warranty anymore. Well, the TARP clearly shows it's still under warranty, so it gave that homeowner some ammunition so that the 2 termite tunnels could be treated and the homeowner didn't have to pay for it. I mean, to be honest, the homeowner hired me to treat the house anyway because they didn't want to deal with the other company. It was kind of a nice thing. But the whole issue is if somebody is buying that house and they're chemical sensitive and they can get just some information of who might have treated the house so they can make a phone call to get some information. And my biggest concern, frankly, is the legislature. If we try to get rid of it, they're going to see it as us throwing away consumer protection. And they're not going to go for it anyway. But lower the fee.
I think that the fees is the whole issue as far as I'm concerned. I don't mind filing a report, but funding the Office of Pest Management should be throughout the industry, not just termite guys. There's fewer of us than there are everybody else. So it needs to be spread out. There just needs to be a better funding mechanism. And I think there's lots of ways to do it. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out.
We haven't been doing termite way long. We started out as a general pest control company and then termite later. But I've seen hundreds and hundreds of times where it's been very beneficial to our customers, where we pulled it up for them and they didn't even realize they were still under warranty. You know what I mean? And granted, yeah, we lost business from that, but we actually gained business in the long run because they appreciated it so much. And in 6 months, they called us back and had us do it. We've even had instances like you, Ken, where they chose to have us treat it even though it's still under warranty. And I think it's more than just the real estate industry. I know from our perspective, we use it all the time, and it's extremely helpful for our customers. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of times. So.
I just have one more comment. If it's a chemical application, I can see a TARP, but for termite inspection transactions for a buyer, I don't think we should do a TARP. We're not applying any kind of material.
No, I agree.
Okay. Just my opinion.
I know.
Just real
What's
quick,
that?
jump in there.
She's been reading her
Lisa Vito with Vito Bug Control. I think the TARP system and the database is a valuable tool to have when we're dealing with our real estate transactions. The most frustrating thing for me is when we've inspected and we see drill scars on a property and you go in and there's no record of any treatment being done there. Whereas on a pre-treatment, you can always find a tag in the meter box or whatever saying, hey, this is an Well, you should. I found a few. You should. Same with the post-construction treatment. That's the most frustrating for a homeowner. We can see fresh drill scars and there's no record. So do you treat it again? Are you putting too much chemical in the ground if you're treating it again, if it was just treated a year previously? So there's value in the database. We don't like paying the fees. I think you already know that. As termite providers, why do we have to pay a fee when General Pest doesn't or the aquatic guy doesn't, you know? So I think on our side, we're kind of like the value's there at a certain point, but I agree with these guys when they say lower that fee down. But there's still not anybody checking to see if the people doing termite work are actually reporting their TARPs. And I think that's very frustrating for a company that's trying to do things the right way.
It's hard to regulate dishonest people.
That's true. But
Yeah, that's Larry Flower, Terminex. I ran operations in Utah for 3 years, and they have no WDIRs as well as TARPs. And so, I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy trying to get any information from anybody and trying to get any kind of regulation over the companies that were up there. Careful who you let in the door.
Courtney, I just have 2 quick follow-up questions for industry. The first one is, do you know anybody else in the industry that isn't electronic? Meaning filing TARPs or doing their business electronically that might still be filing a paper form with the state? And 2, if it was all electronic and you could figure out how to do it for $1, does the heartburn go away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure it does.
It would help. And take the late fees off. Sometimes we're just busy, you know. Sometimes we're busy and we're like, oh. And it's hard to swallow a late fee, even if it's for a couple of them.
Well, and I asked the question because I don't know a lot of people that aren't electronic anymore. I don't know of anybody.
I don't know anybody
And I know in the industry, but I'm asking you, do you know other people that are friends in the industry that aren't electronic, especially those one truck mom and pop guys that are working out of their bedroom? Are they electronic or are they not? I don't know. I don't have that answer.
You know, I thought Ken's suggestion made sense. Really. You eliminate it on your WDIRs. You leave it where we're doing a chemical application. The chemical application is where we can get into a whole lot more consumer issues as far as health and safety, I should say. We can get in a lot of consumer issues due to WDIRs, which is why I do about 4 or 5 a year for my customers, and that's all. But that's an individual decision, you know. So.
And the WDIR doesn't tell you much anyway, other than, you know, at that moment, we didn't find anything.
At home. Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, it's not, you all know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
but Mark Graham again, unfortunately, we have people within our industry that go out and provide wood-destroying insect reports and say, here's your 1-year warranty that you don't have termites. And I stand there with my mouth open going, seriously? And they're out there still. Because how can you take a picture and offer them a warranty and a warranty implies that you made an application and that you can go back and retreat it. That's what a warranty implies. They're guaranteeing that there's not termites on the structure for a year. So you can't regulate stupidity.
Yeah,
it's
but
impossible.
But you can't regulate the free market will ultimately weed that stupidity out, Mark. I mean, I agree it's stupid, but...
I've been the QP on my business for 8 years thinking that it was going to happen, and it hasn't in 8 years, so...
And I've been there longer than that, it hasn't happened.
Well, it's true, there's just new stupid comes up.
There's new stupid. New stupid comes up, and you stand there and ask yourself, how can you do this? And we played, and we paid the $8 to tell them.
That's really good. My dad used to say that's stupid with 2 O's.
Do we have to reference you when we steal that the next time?
For 2 months.
I think we should put all this fee should go on the weed licensing for aquatic weeds, is where it should
should go.
Because every time they touch a piece of water, it's gonna go out into the neighborhoods a lot faster than what we do. Right?
Thanks be to Guy while he's down
Ready
working
to
on
wrap
those.
up charge fees for the reporting? Andrew and I just talked just briefly. This discussion has been great and a little more discussion than I think that we thought we would even get. So I think it's been fantastic feedback from the industry. With your all's blessing, we are thinking about tabling the fees, continuing education, and just the kind of general discussion on the statute configuration, kind of where to put statutes for another town hall meeting. And maybe we need to look at the schedule, and instead of maybe we need to have another one kind of in the central Phoenix area instead of East or West Valley or.
Yeah, make sure you guys signed in, so we have your information, so when we get it, we can be able to send it out, so you guys know. But yeah, we'll do more in the Phoenix area for sure.
Is there something besides that sign-in sheet?
Yeah, the sign-in sheet's here. Has everybody signed in?
No. Now that I'm going to be paying more.
If there's anything that you want AZPPO to share directly with the task force members, we're happy to do that. We know that it's difficult to take time out of your workday to attend the task force meeting, so if we can help facilitate that, we'd be more than happy to do that. And again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for the great discussion and feedback. I hope this is beneficial to the task force members and our chairman that's here. We'll do it again.
One quick thing. So for those of you that are here that are not members, we need to join. For aquatic guides, we can help you push that issue. I mean, that's something no one talks about because there are very few people that have the issue. So get involved, join our ranks, and if you don't have time, let us know, and we'll make sure we're pushing the agenda. We want to represent the industry, and whatever issues that we all have, we want them all to go with. So, with that being said,
Membership applications online.
And if not, you can email azppo@pestworld.org and we'll get you on.
we also want to thank Unimar for letting us host us here, for having refreshments. So, with that being said, travel safely, and yes, sir.
Just want to volunteer Metro Institute for the next meeting. It's a good simplification.
That's right there as well.
Yeah, Mike's got a nice one.
It is central.
It is right. You can't get much more central than Mike's.
5:30?
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
Not in.
That's tough.